In case you guys were wondering, this is what a 600 horsepower Focus ST looks like. There's no engine in it. That's because the engine is over there, the trans is over there. 600 horsepower STs just break stuff, at least more regularly than 500 horsepower STs. That is why I think the 500 horsepower mark for the Focus ST is kind of the sweet spot, because you're not at a point yet where you're going to be breaking random things all the time, but you're making some serious power. So this video is about how to make 500 horsepower. So as we mentioned in the 400 horsepower video, you are going to need all the bolt-ons to accommodate a 500 horsepower goal. That's intake, full exhaust, turbo, fuel system, intercooler. Is there a sixth? Built motor, ooh, and seventh, a tuner, like me. To get you that 500 horsepower goal, it is all about removing restrictions. So you're going to want to get rid of anything that could potentially hold up flow through the engine. And that's why you should go check out that 400 horsepower video for starters. Now, once you get to that 400 mark, it kind of bottlenecks of like the things that you really absolutely need for 400. But when you're going for 500, your options are just endless. There are so many things you can do, so many different paths to take to get to that 500 horsepower goal. Now, you for sure are going to need a built motor, and that's the first place we're going to start. The built motor is key to supporting 500 horsepower. The stock motor can make 500 horsepower, but it will last about as long as this video. So we'll start with the engine options. Now, I know there's a lot of DIYers out there that are more than capable of building your own engine, and there's a lot of people that have shops that they trust to build an engine for them. However, it has been my personal experience that going with a company that specializes in building Focus ST motors regularly is going to be a more reliable and quicker way to get this done. Now, when you go to one of these companies, I would go with a full long block package over a short block package, because timing these motors is quite difficult if you've never done something like that before. And with the long block package, it shows up from valve cover to oil pan, ready to go. You simply pull your motor out, put all your stuff onto the new motor, and then put it back in the car. And while that is a bit extensive, it is way easier than having to assemble an engine and time it. So with the built bottom end, that is going to be enough to support 500 horsepower. However, the ST stock head really bottlenecks right there, so you're going to have to push everything way harder to hit that 500 horsepower dyno sheet, and things will be less reliable because they're having to work harder. So that is why if you're going to shoot for 500 horsepower, I also recommend upgrading the head. You got your valve springs and retainers, and your Piper cams, which you can choose any cam brand that you want. There's a few, and we just happen to be using the Piper BP285s in Project Full Send. Stay tuned to the end for more details on our head. But a 275 or a 285 is going to be more than enough cam to get you to that 500 horsepower and beyond. It's also going to allow you to extend the rev range, because when you're shooting for 500 horsepower, you also need a turbo that can get you there. And in most cases, the turbos that will get you to 500 horsepower are going to be slower to spool. So if you're going to cut a little bit off the left side of the graph, you need to be adding a little bit more to the right side of the graph. And you do that with cams and being able to rev the engine a little bit further. Now that we've talked about the head a little bit, I have one last thing to mention about the bottom end, and that's displacement. You have the option to up the displacement and go to a 2.3 liter. There's also larger displacement increases as well that you can do, but the 2.3 is the most common. Now, the 2.3 liter has some benefits, and that is that it will bring back some of the torque that you lose going to the aftermarket cams, but it comes at a cost of higher back pressure. So you're going to not be able to run the turbos quite as hard as you would on the 2.0, because you're going to hit that magic EMAP to IMAP ratio that you don't want to cross faster with a 2.3 liter. That is going to mean that revving higher is going to be a little bit more difficult as well. So if you want to rev the engine, the 2 liter is going to be better. If you want to have a torquey engine that can still rev, the 2.3 can do it. You are just going to be pushing the back pressure quite a bit harder with the 2.3 liter, especially through the single port Focus ST head. Next up, we have the turbo, and this is the GTX 3582 that we have on Project Full Send, which is overkill for anyone wanting to make 500 horsepower. So I recommend going with a smaller option and keeping it in that 500 to 550 range. The G3770 is going to be a really good choice for most of you. Also the G3660. Both of those turbos are going to be capable of getting to that 500 horsepower mark and beyond. There are a bunch of other turbo options as well. Precision, EFR, and other Garretts like the GTX 3076, and at an absolute minimum, the GTX 3071. But you are going to have to push that turbo very hard to hit that 500 horsepower mark. The other turbos allow you to do this much more easily. And with a built motor, with cams, you can expose the top end from these turbos, or you can get back some of the torque that you lose from the cams and get quicker spool with the 2.3 liter like I mentioned earlier. So going with the bigger, slower spooling turbo with a built motor setup is not going to hinder the performance necessarily, even though it spools a little bit slower. Last but not least, we got to talk about fueling. As I've mentioned before in the 400 horsepower video, you have the XDI option. You can go that route, and that will just barely get you to 500 horsepower on the Focus ST, doing like an ethanol blend, but not fully 85. My personal preference, if 500 is your goal, would be to go full 4-port injection. With that, you're not going to be limited by the fuel pump anymore, and you will have plenty of headroom to make 500 plus, and then some if you decide to get crazy and have a broken ST like us. So, with the 4-port injection, the built motor, 2.3 or 2.0, the head, preferably with a little bit of porting, maybe some oversized valves, and a cam upgrade, and the right turbo, my pick's the G3770, you can make 500 horsepower. But don't forget a good tuner. And if you're looking for a good tuner, I am available. You can reach me at tuning@edgeautosport.com, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. We'll catch you next time. A little bonus section to cover what's done with our head that's going in Project Full Send. I'm going to leave it wrapped up because it needs to stay clean. And again, that's kind of part of the precision that we talked about earlier. You want to make sure that your engine builder is doing everything as clean as possible. So I'm going to leave it wrapped up so JP doesn't find me and murder me. Like I said earlier, we have the Piper Stage 3 cams. It's the BP 285s. And we have the dual valve springs. I believe they're the 80-something pound valve springs. We also have Faria, I can never pronounce it right, valves, and they are the valves from the 2.3 Mustang. They're actually the oversized valves for the 2.3 Mustang. So we have, it's about 2 millimeters bigger on the exhaust side, I believe, and it's like 1 or 1.5, something like that, millimeters bigger on the intake side. And for porting, this is important. You don't want to overport these engines. You don't want to hog out the runner and go all the way down to the 2 valves with no divider. All you really need to do is a little bit of knife edging on the split between the two runners for the single cylinder. A little bit of knife edging to just get a little bit more flow, and you can kind of clean out those runners, but you want to keep them rough. You don't want them to be smooth or polished, because the roughness actually provides better airflow than the polished. On the exhaust side, we have that ported out a little bit as well. It is a little bit bigger than factory port, and you can do a little bit in there in the exhaust where you can get into it to get those to flow a little bit more, but there's only so much you can do on the single port head. But we've done just about all that you can do on this single port head to get it to flow as well as it can. And with this head, we were able to make 637 horsepower on Project Full Send when it was last running, and we haven't changed anything for the head. The only thing that we've changed is we now have a sleeved block, and the head is going to be O-ringed so that we can make sure and not have as much of a chance of lifting the head. We also are running the L19 head studs. These are actually, looks like the main studs, so there might be head studs. Anyways, we are also running the L19 head studs, which you can find those on our website. Again, if you have any questions about parts for your engine build, you can reach out to sales@edgeautosport.com. And if you have questions about tuning for your engine build, reach out to tuning@edgeautosport.com, and I'll be happy to get you taken care of. And I already outroed, so I'm not going to outro a second time.